I'm Mason Mount. You're listening to the London is Blue podcast.
All right. Well, the last player we'd like to highlight, Naz, is VAR. So that
most
was the
disruptive
thing.
player on the pitch.
It had a role. What is it good for? Maybe nothing. Maybe something, right? I mean, we're not really sure. It's still early days, but it sounds like this has been widely reported as things that VAR has reviewed would be the foul on Tammy that ended up much later leading to Norwich's first goal. By the way, Eric on text hit me with this same thing. A lot happened after Tammy got fouled before Chelsea scored. Okay, Chelsea had many chances to stop that attack. But anyways, it was still a bad foul, and he should have been cautioned and eventually sent off. So the offsides on the second goal, the challenge on Aspie in the box not being given as a penalty, the stamp on Mason Mount, and then obviously Zuma's disallowed goal. Naz, I can understand why the Zuma goal didn't stand, because if you look at the replay, Giroud ended up making contact with their keeper versus just being straight up. But I can see how it's close. But there's a long list here in just one match, and I think there's lists coming from other matches as well.
Yeah, but this is what we've got to get used to. I think it's probably the first Chelsea game where there's been a lot of VAR incidents, so it's kind of been under the spotlight with the fan base. But no, that Zuma decision was the correct one. You know, the keeper had both hands on the ball. He dropped it because Giroud backed into him. Giroud didn't mean to back into him, but it's still a foul all day long. It's always been like that. The Mason Mount incident, I think that was a correct decision. It was horrible to see Mount get that, but it was clearly accidental. No intention at all. I don't think Mount would have said that it was intentional. I think that, you know, most of the decisions were correct. The Azpilicueta one, that was so strange. I couldn't believe that he didn't at least look to VAR. Now, I don't know if that was a penalty. I think it could have easily been a penalty. But, you know, he clearly made contact with Azpilicueta. Why wasn't that being questioned or looked at? Unbelievable decision, really, I think, from the VAR referee. Now, that might have been an accident. You might have let it go because you'd be like, Azpilicueta was on his blind side. He got kicked. The player didn't see him. Maybe let him off. But, you know, it's definitely one that should be checked. But, yeah, beyond that, you know, I think it wasn't an awful day for the referees. It wasn't an awful day for VAR. We've seen worse in other games. The offside situation, you know, they need to favour the attackers a little bit more. It's too strict on the, you know, in favouring defenders. I think that, you know, Raheem Sterling's shoulder being offside in the Man City game the other week was just absolutely ridiculous. They need to let some of these things go. And yeah, it's changing the game. We're going to see some unbelievable controversies this season. Chelsea fans are going to be so angry, just like every other fan base, really. And it's going to, you know, Man City had an awful one the other day as well. So against Tottenham, a handball right in the last minute. Imagine if that happens at Chelsea in a game that really matters against Tottenham. It's going to be a huge issue. But it's something we have to get used to. The Premier League clubs, they voted for it. I think Chelsea voted to have VAR as well. So we're just going to have to accept it, unfortunately. I don't like it, actually. I wouldn't. I wish football didn't have VAR, but I understand why they've got it. They want the decisions right. There's a lot of money on the line, and they want as many as possible right. And apparently they're getting more right than wrong. So, yeah, it's a whole new world for us.
The bar for VAR should not be, well, other teams have had it worse. Like, I mean, like that's and I think that's where it's at right now. Like, if you're a fan of the NFL, when they, you know, instituted instant replay, it took a good 5 to 7 years for them to get like 88% correct calls, which is ludicrous because the people who are running the instant replay in the NFL are the people who make up the rules every single year in the, you know, in the players meetings and stuff like that. So I mean, I think there has to be a threshold, Dan, of percentage of calls right. And this is over probably 3 years, so it probably has to get worse before it gets better. But if we are not getting at least 85 to 88 to 90% of these calls correct, knowing that there's going to be a margin of error and knowing that, you know, humans still make mistakes, then I think you got to take a second look at the overall program, because it can't be that we get it wrong all the time, because humans could just do that without the program and keep the game moving.
The thing that's the most concerning is just the consistency piece, and that's what has to improve dramatically and has to improve quickly, because it's going to be a very negative backlash on the game. It's going to be frustrating for A, Chelsea fans, but B, all fans of football, that you're seeing results that are inconsistent. You're seeing some teams get the favor of it, some teams not getting the favor of it. It's going to create these really awkward storylines and things that are going to take away from, we're talking about this rather than giving a few more minutes on Mason Mount. We're talking about this rather than giving a few more minutes on Tammy Abraham or Frank Lampard's improvement. And we're making that decision to talk about it because it is important. It is important to discuss the fact that this is not where it needs to be. And your point, Nick, about the NFL, and for those of our listeners who don't watch the NFL, when it rolled out and instant replay was a part of the conversation, the way that it disrupted a game, and this is a game that already has stopping built in after every single play, was massively disruptive. You would go watch the person run over to a booth, put their eyes into a kind of box, look at the play for about 30, 40 seconds, then come back out and then make the decision. You'd have a commercial break. And now, many, many years later, it has become a very good part of the game. It helps, I think it's like 99.99% of plays that they review, they get their call right on. And that's great, but we are not there yet today with VAR. We are not there. I definitely think the Azpilicueta one should have been a penalty, but you know what? At the end of the day, we won through all of it, so I'm less concerned. I think you're going to see people be very frustrated and affected, like the Man City fans who are going to feel aggrieved that they didn't win against Tottenham. I think that's where the conversations are going to spike, Brandon, and it needs to get better quickly. And I don't know how they do that necessarily unless they kind of publish the results or provide higher levels of transparency to like why certain decisions are being made, so that supporters can at least understand the thought process.
But that's not going to happen because they've always protected the referees above everything else. Also, it's super subjective, and that's part of it. So, thanks for reminding us that Chelsea voted for it, Naz, aka we can't argue with it because we signed up for it. But it will be part of, a learning curve, to say the least, this season. And I thought the biggest point out of this, Dan, is that you said Chelsea got through it. They found a way to still get it done versus using that as a crutch for excuses. And that's, to me, the most important thing.